For centuries, Russia projected an image of vastness and mystery, a land of endless forests, frozen tundra, and an empire that stretched from Europe to the Pacific. Behind that image lay something else entirely, not just power, but secrecy. The real Russian miracle wasn't only in its armies, it was in the hidden networks of vaults and bunkers spread across Siberia. One built not of palaces and parades, but of concrete, steel, and silence. And in those vaults, buried under permafrost and mountains, lie the financial and political secrets of oligarchs, generals, corporations, and states. Let's start with the foundation. In the late Tsarist era, imperial treasuries were moved east, far from Europe's battlefields and revolution. That instinct for distance and discretion became the seed of something bigger long before the USSR built its closed cities. By the 20th century, as Europe burned through 2 world wars, Siberia's remoteness was already a shield for hidden assets. But the decisive moment came during Stalin's rule, when secret cities and underground facilities were carved into the earth. Secrecy wasn't just policy, it was punishable by prison. Or worse, confidentiality became a product protected by law, guarded by the KGB. This system came at a very convenient time. The Cold War was beginning. Nuclear stockpiles, gold reserves, and sensitive archives were moved east of the Urals. State corporations shifted assets into hidden accounts and depots. And Siberia, officially part of a unified Soviet Union yet geographically untouchable, became the perfect vault. The remoteness wasn't passive, it was strategic. By keeping outsiders away, Moscow could keep its secrets intact. The Cold War was when Siberia's vaults became both infamous and indispensable. Nuclear warheads, foreign currency reserves, and even art seized from occupied nations found their way into hidden bunkers. At the same time, covert funds moved quietly through state banks in Novosibirsk and Omsk. Corporations on both sides of the Iron Curtain used Soviet channels to move money discreetly, confident it would survive the chaos. The USSR didn't win the Cold War financially, but its vaults certainly profited from it. After 1991, when the Soviet Union collapsed and oligarchs rose, the legend of the Siberian vaults exploded. For Russia's new elite, it meant safety. Safety from expropriation by rivals, safety from sanctions abroad, safety from the scrutiny of regulators. To have assets stored in Siberia was to have them beyond reach. The hidden vaults near Krasnoyarsk, Norilsk, and Yakutsk became symbols of invulnerability. But secrecy is never just about protecting wealth. It's about protecting power. Over the last 3 decades, Siberia became the preferred hiding place for the fortunes of oligarchs and officials. Billions skimmed from privatization auctions were buried in off-book accounts. Precious metals, rare earths, even cryptocurrency servers all moved east to stay out of Western courts and journalists' eyes. While Moscow glitters, Siberia stores. At the same time, state companies dodging sanctions and politicians looking for a fallback all flocked to the permafrost. If power corrupted, Siberia kept it cold and hidden for a fee. During the post-Soviet years, secrecy took on a new dimension. Both the FSB and foreign intelligence needed channels to move covert funds. Siberian banks and vaults were perfect. They didn't ask questions, they didn't disclose. Money, gold, and data could cross borders silently, funding operations that never showed up in official budgets. The Cold War may have been fought in Berlin, Afghanistan, and Washington, but its hidden wealth often passed quietly through Novosibirsk. By the 2000s and 2010s, Siberian secrecy had become a cliché in Russian thrillers. TV dramas showed oligarchs with Siberian vaults. Politicians thundered about offshore havens abroad, but rarely mentioned the ones at home. Everyone knew the phrase. Almost no one knew what it really meant. Because the truth is, a Siberian vault isn't a single bunker filled with gold bars. It's an ecosystem of lawyers, shell companies, and underground facilities designed to shield the identity of the owner. And for decades, that shield was impenetrable. By the late 20th century, Russian vaults were no longer just safe havens for state assets and covert operatives. They had become a global brand, quiet but powerful. Secrecy was their product, and it was sold with the same confidence that Moscow sold its natural gas to Europe. The hidden account was iconic. No names, no questions, just codes and containers. If you had one, you had joined the world's hidden aristocracy. Your wealth was now invisible to Western sanctions, immune from political upheaval, and cloaked behind one of the toughest secrecy cultures on Earth. But with great secrecy comes inevitable scandal. By the 2010s, pressure began to mount. Journalists and whistleblowers demanded answers about assets moved east from Moscow and hidden away in Siberian vaults. Investigations revealed that some institutions had profited not only during privatization, but also afterward by stonewalling efforts to trace stolen funds. The Russian brand of remoteness suddenly looked less like strategy and more like complicity. Under global pressure, some assets were frozen, some exposed, but the damage to the mystique was lasting. At the same time, governments facing deficits started to lose patience with the tax losses created by hidden wealth. For decades, elites could hide assets in Siberia while ordinary citizens faced every audit and paycheck deduction back home. It was financial apartheid, transparency for the masses, invisibility for the elite. Today, the vaults haven't vanished. They've evolved. The smartest money didn't disappear. It migrated into new forms. Cryptocurrency, cold storage bunkers, offshore proxies, and layered corporate networks with Siberian nodes. Secrecy didn't end in Switzerland, it globalized, and Siberia became part of that network. The attraction remained, a sense of invulnerability in a world of chaos. During every global crisis, from sanctions to currency crashes, money still rushes into hidden vaults. Even when laws soften, the reputation for safety holds. In a world of capital controls, inflation, and political storms, Siberia still looks like a fortress. The irony is inescapable. Russian vaults built their fortune on an image of remoteness, but that remoteness always had a price tag. They were not neutral in the moral sense. They were strategic in the business sense. They would store anything, protect any asset, so long as the system benefited. Oligarchs, corporations, politicians, spies, all were welcome. The vaults were not picky about the origins of wealth. Their only allegiance was to secrecy itself. The myth of the impenetrable Siberian vault may have faded, but the core lesson of financial secrecy still defines our world. Wealth has learned to hide. It no longer sits only in Swiss banks. It flows through shell companies, trusts, and underground data centers in Siberia that keep ownership obscure. The secrecy has gone digital, global, and even harder to trace, and Russian vaults, though forced to surrender some of their old tricks, remain central players in this invisible economy. The winners are easy to identify. Elites still enjoy the same protections they always did. Billionaires and corporations use secrecy structures to shield profits from taxation, moving money quietly across borders, while ordinary citizens pay full freight at home. Politicians caught in scandals, oligarchs under sanctions, ex-leaders ousted from power. Again and again, investigators discover that a Siberian vault or an offshore structure kept their fortunes safe. For the global wealthy, secrecy is resilience. For the rest of us, transparency is obligation. And the costs? They land on ordinary people. When elites hide money, governments lose tax revenue. That revenue has to be replaced with higher taxes on workers or with more debt, which fuels inflation, which erodes savings. The secrecy perfected in Siberia's vaults is not just a game for the rich. It is a transfer of burden from those who can afford lawyers and hidden networks to those who can't. The game didn't stop. It evolved. It went offshore. It went digital. It became more complex. And it remains fueled by the same principle. Money and power crave invisibility, so what's the lesson? That financial education means seeing through the illusion. When politicians promise fairness but allow global secrecy to persist, they are protecting the few at the expense of the many. When banks market stability and remoteness, what they often mean is profitability through discretion. And when the world's elites hide their wealth, it is ordinary citizens who pay the bill. The Russians didn't invent secrecy, they adapted it. They turned remoteness into a brand, and secrecy into one of the most powerful financial products in modern history. Their vaults may have opened slightly under global pressure, but the real secrets, the way power protects itself, the way wealth hides from accountability, remain alive and well. And until we understand how these systems work, we'll keep playing a rigged game. History doesn't repeat, but if you don't understand it, it'll crush you all the same. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look.